Today is the third part of the subject Prisca Theologia. The first part was dealing with astrology, the second part with astrotheology, and this will be dealing with occult science and esoteric wisdom. And what I will endeavour to do is to present this ancient theology, Prisca meaning ancient, in a syncretic way. Okay, so syncretism was something that the Renaissance people knew a lot about, because Pico, one of the foremost Renaissance masters, he pretty much brought syncretism to the attention of the world when he went down to Rome with his 900 theses. Here they are. That's another zero to the 90 theses of Martin Luther 30 years after Pico. Anyway, Pico went down to Rome and he decided that he would challenge the Vatican to a debate to prove that all the sciences, all the philosophies and theologies and schools of thought can all be syncretized into one homogeneous, harmonious unity of teaching. What I'm going to be sharing with you today is the knowledge and the understanding of what all the philosophies are based on. And it's a simple cycle of nature, or cycles of nature. Okay, so with one graph we should be able to pretty much explain how most of the sciences work and how much of the philosophies work. So it's very interesting how Pico treated the subject. He went down to Rome because he was trying to bring back the Prisca Theologia. You see, this word was very much on his lips, as it was on Marsilio Ficino's lips, the guy who translated the Hermetica. Now, the Hermetic wisdom has always been there. It's been there for thousands and thousands of years. And according to Stephen Meller, who was a person who went down to Egypt and spoke to the indigenous wisdom keepers, and that would be Abdel Hakim Aouyan, who has now passed away. But here Stephen explains how the indigenous wisdom keepers explained many things about the true history of Egypt, and how Egypt has an antiquity of at least 50 to 65,000 years, with that particular consciousness, wave of consciousness that created such wonderful buildings like the pyramids. Now, those pyramids are built in such a way that it is impossible to replicate them today with our science and technology. The pyramid codes is probably another one of the products that I would like to bring to your attention when it comes to the truth about Egypt. Okay? Carmen Butler has also interviewed Abdel Hakim Aouyan in this wonderful documentary, which shows the true antiquity of things like the Sphinx and the Great Pyramid and all the megalithic sites down in Saqqara and Dendra and Luxor, etc. So, and with that, I would like to bring your attention to the Commission School of Ancient Mysticism, and I'll be doing a 2-week tour in Egypt next year in October with Yusuf and Patricia Aouyan, the son and daughter-in-law of Abdel. So when you watch, you can watch that. You can see that on YouTube, but I'd recommend you get that for your own collection. And you'll see Abdel there discussing the true origins of this wonderful science. Okay, so what Rome would like us to believe is that civilization's about 6,000 years old, and there was an Adam and an Eve, and apart from that, they were very barbaric, and many of the human brothers lived in caves, and then, of course, evolved their intelligence, and now here we are at the peak of all wisdom and intelligence in linear history. Whereas the Prisca Theologia proves that this is false. Absolutely false. We live in cycles whereby consciousness grows and then recedes, grows and then recedes. And we have been at the bottom of a wave of loss of consciousness for about 5,000 years. Again, according to Abdel, the indigenous wisdom keeper, and we've been in the age of Amun for 5,000 years. And it's the age of darkness and slumber, spiritual slumber. And before that was the age of Aten, you see, and which had more light. Okay, and then it goes back and back to the golden age. But we've been at the bottom of the wave for such a long time. So syncretism is all about bringing back the unity of the religio/science that we once enjoyed on this earth. So there is abundant proof that once upon a time we were all united in the one science. And the proof of that is in that we find that the gods of various cultures seem to have the same deeds to their credit and the same numbers and the same names, etc. For instance, Zeus of the Greeks seems to be very similar in his actions and behaviour to Jupiter of the Romans, etc., etc. And Thoth of the Egyptians seems to be the same guy that the Greeks call Hermes and the Romans call Mercurius, and the Hindus call, or the Easterners call Buddha. So what in effect we're going to be doing is we're going to be pulling back the information that comes from all of these sources to show that they all have one common thread underpinning them. Now, the way in which we can do this is through one graph. And the graph you've seen many times if you've watched my presentations. Now, what I'm doing here is just following science and nature. You see, this is an old map of the Earth. And the old map is divided in two by an equator. And you have a northern hemisphere and a southern hemisphere. And usually on good maps you'll see the sine wave that goes through the equator and hits the Tropic of Cancer, and then goes back through the equator and then down to the Tropic of Capricorn. And this produces the seasons every year. Now, the interesting thing about this map is they placed the glyph of Aries right at the beginning here, and then you have Taurus over here, and then Cancer right on cue with the Tropic of Cancer. And then as you go along you have Leo, and then you have Virgo here and the scales of Libra, right at the point of equilibrium, okay? The middle of the sine wave. So I'm going to follow this science, and what we're going to find is as we go through these 12 segments of the sphere, of the sky, is we're going to find all the characters in all of the mythologies, and including the holy, so-called Holy Bible. And we're going to discover a lot about science, a lot about fairy tales and nursery rhymes and mythologies, etc. And what we will discover is the fact that the ancients based all of their science on this simple science. because it explains how everything is produced in the universe. Okay? So let's just follow that. And we have, of course, the Tropic of Cancer above the equator, 23.5 degrees. And we have the Tropic of Capricorn below the equator, 23.5 degrees. Now, the sine wave, of course, you saw wrapped right around the Earth, okay? Because that sine wave is produced when the sun appears to go through the ecliptic, through the 12 signs of the zodiac, because of the tilt of the Earth and its angle as it goes around in its orbit, producing 4 seasons. So what happens is, there is the path that the sun appears to take. Okay, and it makes that sine wave. Now, Aries, of course, we said starts here at the beginning, and this was Cancer, so we can pretty much draw a line there for Cancer. And then Libra was over here, and that would be the Tropic of Capricorn. So over here we have March the 21st, June the 21st, the solstice, the equinox, September the 21st, the autumnal equinox, and December the 21st, the winter solstice, from the northern hemisphere, of course, okay? Now, so these are describing the equinoxes, the days of equilibrium, and the days of maximum light and minimum light. So what we do is we bring this circle around. That's a bit of an egg shape, isn't it? Now, and we bring this, the solstice and December the 21st around, so we make a circle. Now, what we get from this cycle is a circle like this, which the ancients called the circle of the zodiac. And this is how it looks. Aries is the first sign. Aries. Taurus is the second sign. And Gemini is the third sign. That's the spring. So from March the 21st to June the 21st, you have the spring. Okay? And then after Gemini, you have Cancer, because you see the sun has hit the Tropic of Cancer, and now the sun needs to wane and go down to winter. So that's longest day of the year, shortest day of the year. So we have this polarity, you see? Okay? Now, here we have Cancer, because the sun has touched the Tropic of Cancer, so it stays in Cancer for 30 days. Here we have Leo, and here we have Virgo, the beautiful summer months. Okay? Then the sun drops below the equator. So the sun goes bye-byes for 6 months. And in the north, the winter months come. Okay, so you have to be prepared for the winter months. Now, what happens there is the winter has the colour of red. Because the sun is passing through the Red Sea. You see, around about September, what happens is those beautiful green leaves begin to turn red. So they look around in the Northern Hemisphere and say, well, the sun's passing through the Red Sea, because everything in autumn turns red. Orange, yellow, red, okay? So this was considered to be the Red Sea. You see, you have to go through the Red Sea, and finally you get into the Promised Land. This is the Promised Land, the summer. And I'll explain why it's the Promised Land, but there's a lot of reasons why they called this the Promised Land. Okay? And here is the Red Sea, or Tartarus. And here we have Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. Okay? And this, of course, has the lush green look of vegetation, photosynthesis, because the sun is booming. He's happy in his kingdom. In fact, the sun rules, in astrology, the sun rules over here. Okay? The moon, she rules over here in Cancer. And then always next to those will be Mercury, always. Mercury can never be more than 28 degrees away from the sun. And Mercury would correspond to the disciple of Jesus called John, because John says, I was always near unto the Lord. I'm the one that the Lord loved. Yes, the Lord, as you will see in the mythologies and in the Gospels, that's this guy, Mercury. In any birth chart, you will always see the sun in its sign, and Mercury will be either a sign next door on either side of the sun or in the same sign as the sun. Okay? So check out your birth charts, and there's Mercury, always faithful and close to the sun. He can never be badly aspected to the sun. He will always be a friend and support of the sun in this science. Next to them will be Venus, because Venus cannot be more than 48 degrees away from the sun. You see, Mercury and Venus are actually inner planets. They are inside our orbit, smaller than our orbit and closer to the sun. Therefore, they can be blocked out by going in front of the sun. And what I'm referring to is our solar system is a vortex. Okay? This is exactly how our solar system works. We don't have a solar system where the sun is over here and then all the planets orbit on the same plane. That's ridiculous. And it has been debunked by scientists like Walter Russell in this book. Okay? So what happens is, of course, we've got Mercury over here, and then we've got Venus, and then the Earth. And when Mercury goes in front of the sun, around here and here, always in this path here of the vortex, we don't see them. But scientists tell us that it's because Mercury or Venus has gone behind the sun. It can never go behind the sun. It will always be, the sun is always at the top of the cone, and the planets are always behind. So when Mercury and Venus disappear, which Jupiter, Mars and Saturn cannot do, because they are outer planets, so they can never be hiding, you see, behind the sun. And so, whereas these ones will be. So this is why we need to understand their placement. Okay, I'm teaching you a little bit of modern science. By the way, Nassim Harriman has got a good video explaining this solar system, and on my YouTube site, Mr. Astrotheology, you can see some science videos explaining how this solar system works. Okay, there's an Indian scientist called Palathadka Keshava Bhat, B-H-A-T. Okay, and you can see his video on YouTube where he explains how the vortex solar system works. I've included a bit of this in my presentations because I think we should consider this and try and wrap our minds around it, because this is going to debunk the old theory, just like this one debunked the flat earth theory, etc. Okay? So now we understand why these planets are always friendly to the sun, Venus and Mercury. Then next in line is Mars. Sorry, I've done something wrong here. Where's my green? Let me correct myself. I did put Mercury there. So Mercury and Venus is here. Sorry, I put Venus over here. That's the mistake that I made. Okay. So let's do that again. You've got the sun and the moon ruling. They are the most luminous orbs in the sky. Therefore, they rule summer. Okay. Now, when you look at it, look at this as the four seasons: spring, summer, autumn, and winter. So when you look at it, this July, August is the hottest time of the year. So, hello, right on cue, you find the Son dwelling in his house, in his kingdom of heaven. This is heaven and this is hell. The Son always lives in the kingdom of heaven, in the Lion of the tribe of Judah, where the scepter shall not depart. Can't be removed, cannot be removed. And I'll show you that science. The moon, she's always there. She's always there in the kingdom with her husband. That's Abraham and Sarah. That's King Arthur and Guinevere. It's Jack and Jill climbed up the hill. That's the hill. This is always considered to be the hill, as you will see. Okay? So you've got Mercury always close. And then Venus close again, but then you have Mars. Okay? And Mars is a little bit of an opposer. He rules Aries and Scorpio. Okay? Now, why does he oppose? Well, because he's doing a 90-degree angle with the moon here, and he's doing a 90-degree angle here with the sun. And anyone who's studied astrology knows that that's a square, and that's a bad aspect. And so the sun is putting himself in a position of antagonism toward, Mars is putting himself in a position of antagonism toward the sun, whereas these ones dare not. Mercury and Venus. Okay? So Mars, you see, is the beginning of this antagonism toward the kingdom of heaven. And then you've got Jupiter, you see. So these boys, the big boys, and here we have Saturn and Saturn. So you've got, Saturn is the great opposer in this system, because he is always opposing directly the moon or the sun. He always opposes the greater luminaries. That's why he's the greater malefic in astrology, because of his position of antagonism on the outer of the solar system, and he's cold. And the sun doesn't like cold, so he cast him down into hell. Okay? And this is the placement of the seven. Okay? Who are the seven? Well, the seven are always known as the archons or the cosmocrators, the ones who gouge out matter. You know, they've got knives in their hands, the little dwarf gods of Egypt. Or the potters of Memphis, the potters of Tar in Egypt. Or the Jews call them the Elohim. Very interesting word, Elohim. And I pointed out last week in the presentation, in the Hawaiians say aloha. Aloha, I mean, it's things like this, which I'm going to give many examples of, that show that there's this commonality, there's this common, fundamental, spiritual science/religion that underpins all systems. And it's there once you go looking for the clues. If you don't go looking, you will not find. But you have to overturn all the stones. That's why this science is called occult science. Why is it occult? Well, it's been occulted to the eyes of, say, churchgoers, for instance, because what do they get told? Well, they get told, don't you read any of the publications or books or anything that any other philosopher or church publishes, because that's from the devil. Just read our publications. Well, is that overturning every stone? It's not. But the Elohim are seven, and they correspond to all of the sevens that we see in nature, because nature is a septenary. Okay? Whereas mind, Pymander, the mind of the divine, is 12. 12. Okay? The ether, the God, the cause. Okay? And how it imprints its patterns on matter is through the principle of seven, you see. When you place the zodiac, this was the gift that the ancients gave us. They gave us this gift. And this is the gift that will syncretize all of the philosophies in the near future. because it's the revival of Hermetic wisdom that will syncretize all of the philosophies. And one day, in the very near future, we will have this one religion because we will understand it. Well, I doubt whether we'll call it a religion, because religion means relegare, and that means to bind, to tie together in a bundle, like the fasci of Rome, which is a fascist dictatorship. But it will be the knowledge of the true God, as the Bible says. That the day will come when everyone will be filled with the knowledge of the true God. This is it. It's nature. It's science. It's not hocus pocus traditions that are handed down which have no basis in anything real. It has to be real. And that's what Hermetic wisdom is all about. It's real truth, verifiable and provable. So when you place Aries over here at the equator, at the equinox, and Libra, the opposite, at the equator, the equinox, what you have is if you place the human being inside, you'll see the head always in Aries and the neck. And you'll notice that there are seven chakra points. You see, they go straight through and they live basically on the spinal column. And they are energy centers, they are wheels, you see. And St. John in the book of Revelation calls those the seven seals that need to be opened. And the Lord opened the first seal, and I heard a voice of an angel. And then he opened the second seal, and I heard a voice of an angel. You need to study what the angel says, and you'll see that these are the bursting of the seven seals. And the Elohim, the seven planets in the solar system, the 7 days of the week. These are the cosmocrators, or the Elohim of the Jews. So what we do then is, as we go through this wheel, we begin to see that it tells a story. You see, the sun tells a fabulous story as it goes through the seasons. Here it tells a story of conquest and how he has defeated his enemies down below in Tartarus. And who would they be? Well, just have a look. Winter. Capricorn and Aquarius, associated with Saturn. Saturn, he gets the pleasure of killing his brother's light, who he opposes. The great opposer, Saturn. He gets the pleasure of killing his brother's light on the last day of that cycle, the 21st of December, because he takes over on the 22nd. And Saturn kicks him out. He says, no fire in my quadrant. I rule this quadrant. So here there's fire, cardinal fire, fixed fire, and mutable fire. Mutable because it must be extinguished. The cycle of heat and life generation must be extinguished by Mr. Cold. So he's always there, and he's ready to kill the light of the sun. So you see the job of Saturn. Poor guy. He gets disparaging remarks because he has to play his role in nature. So he gets to be a very naughty boy. Okay, and let's think about Saturn for a minute, shall we? Think of all the things that are associated with Saturn. The 7th day of the week is associated with Saturn. It's called Saturn Day, right? Saturday. And what usually happens on that day? Would that be the weekend, the day of revelry? You know, Saturday night fever. And let's go out Saturday night, boys. Let's go out on the tiles, right? It's always this guy. It's always Saturn, the bad boy. Let's have a look at the year. So that's the week. Okay. By the way, the moon does not dominate the week. Okay? Saturn dominates the week. I'll explain that later. It belongs to him. The number 7 is Saturn. It's the Sabbath day, the 7th day. It's the 7th planet. It's the one that is the one that is right on top, the top chakra. Saturn's here, the moon's down below, the bottom chakra, the alpha and the omega. So he dominates the 7th day of the weekend. He is the boss of the week, and I'll explain that later. All right, what about the day? What happens during the day? Let's see where Saturn appears during the day. If we have established that on March the 21st, the sun splits the day between 12 hours of darkness and 12 hours of light, well then the sun must rise at 6 o'clock in the morning, 6 a.m, and set at 6 p.m. It's the only days of the year where this happens. On the equator, the sun rises at 6 a.m. and sets at 6 p.m. Only happens on these 2 days, these 2 golden days. Right? So if you place 6 o'clock there, 12 midday here, 6 p.m. over here, and 12 a.m. over here, midnight, then you begin to see how Saturn is important in this cycle. Because Saturn rules from, Aries rules from 6 to 8, Taurus 8 to 10, Gemini rules 10 to 12, Cancer rules 12 to 2, 4 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock. Wow. Right on cue, we have Saturn turning up at midnight. And what happens after midnight? It's the naughtiest time of the day, is it not? You know, some people who are quite forward in telling you that they do their best work after midnight and etc. Okay? He gets from 12 to 4. But the benefits of Saturn's rule is that you can do good thinking at this time of the night. Many philosophers and many geniuses have found most of their insights at this time of the night. You know, King David in the Psalm says, "Oh, I wake up in the middle of the night to look at your stars and tell forth your glory and be inspired by your heavens." This is a magic time, but it's also that time of revelry where things happen, you know. Thieves do their work at night, don't they? You see, and Saturn rules the night. Now, let's have a go at the year. How does Saturn affect the year? Well, this is winter. So he snuffs out the sun's light in mutable fire, Sagittarius. Here's another one. In ancient Rome, they used to celebrate the Saturnalia. Okay? And what happened in the Saturnalia? Well, first of all, when was it celebrated? Well, it was started on the 17th of December, 4 days before the solstice. And it went all the way to Christmas Day, the 25th of December, when the sun begins its journey, all the way back up the holy mountain. So all in here, the Romans celebrated one of the most famous Bacchic orgies of history. Revelries. Absolute revelry time, man. Christmas is a reminder of the Saturnalia. In fact, it is the festival of the Saturnalia. That's what Christmas is. That's why you go out to your friends on Christmas Day and you get drunk and, you know, you abuse each other emotionally and everything like that. In Rome, yeah, you know, how many traumatic Christmases have you been through? Can you remember them? Any good ones? Oh, yeah. Well, they're good because there's good stuff that happens here too. It's not all bad. But it's about Saturn. That's the point. Look for Saturn. You've got to look at what he's doing. He's the one with the horns, man. And he's ready to reap your soul because he's the Grim Reaper. Souls ascend from the gateway of the gods here. This is the descent in the Tropic of Cancer ruled by the moon. This is the gateway of men. We come in through here, through that tropic. It's a stargate. And we leave at this tropic. Capricorn's where we say bye-byes to fleshly incarnation. In fact, the rings of Saturn, that's the last sphere that we have to deal with in terms of physical incarnation, okay? And this is how it works. So these are the 10 heavens. That's the primum mobile. Primum mobile. The crystalline sea. The firmament, where the zodiac is. This is what we're doing here, the firmament, the zodiac. And below are the 7 Elohim, the cosmocrators, the creators. Saturn is always on the top. This is the kingdom of Saturn. That's his kingdom. Because Saturn is chronos. Chronos is time. Chronology, etc. All those time words. So we're stuck in time. We're stuck in a sine wave. And I dealt with this last week. Sine wave is a sin wave. That's where the sin is, time. Because you're born in time, you must die in time. Ain't none of these bodies going to be around forever. These are just a dream. So, but the soul needs to learn this science, because this is the true soul science of the stars above, as above, so below, that enables us to journey back, to make our journey back. And Christianity and the churches and Rome and the Vatican are all about trying to suppress this hermetic wisdom. Because if they can do that, they get to have more slaves on the planet for future harvesting their energies. You see? So it's very important that this wisdom be understood. It must be mastered. This is the structure of the universe, the material structure. This is how it works. And you live in this octave. That's the octave in which you dwell, dominated by these 7. They are responsible for every little atom and cell in your body being in the place that it is. All the cells, it's like a coagulation of molecules that have happily agreed to just work together as one organism for you to be able to exist physically on the physical plane on this earth. There's the earth at the bottom, the 8th sphere. And this is the descent of souls: Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, the Sun, Venus, Mercury, Moon. And they are the 7 chakras: pineal gland, pituitary gland, throat chakra, heart chakra, solar plexus, and the generative chakra, and the root chakra. And as we activate those powers and get those little wheels a spinning, we actually go up back to heaven. And heaven is here in the body. As I will show you later, part of this science is all about the body. In the scriptures they talk about the Holy Land. It's no use going to Judah. It's no use going to Egypt. The Holy Land is your body. The body is the Holy Land. Here is the Holy Land, guys. That's the ecliptic, the 12 signs of the zodiac in the body. Pisces in the feet, Aries in the head. The Pleiades right on cue. That should be sort of more up in the head area, but the Pleiades are in Taurus, which is in the head, in the centre of the head. Correspond to all the good little glands that are going on in there, like your pituitary, the limbic system, and stuff like that, all in here. And the spine, this is the Holy River, right? And Sodom and Gomorrah is down here in the bottom chakras, the red chakras. That's Sodom and Gomorrah. And this is the river. Eridanus is the great river. There it is, the Eridanus. This is one of the deacons of Taurus. Eridanus is the Jordanus, the Jordan River. It's in the head. That's heaven. This is earth. This is hell. Heaven, earth, hell. So above, Midgard, inferior, infernal. Infernal always carries with it the colours red. In fact, in the occult science, they taught that everything below the kidneys was considered to be Egypt. This is Egypt. And this is why God's children, the elect, go through the Red Sea and must come out on the other side of the Red Sea in order to be saved. And this is exactly why they celebrate the Passover. Right here on cue, and they eat the lamb, the sacrificial Passover lamb. And I think it was Jesus that was called the Passover lamb, was it not? Yes. The Passover lamb. Why would you call Jesus, the Saviour, a Passover lamb? Because you're talking about astrology. The Bible's full of astrology. That's why he is the lamb. And the blood of the lamb. The blood of the lamb is the sun's rays, the beautiful photons that drench us in the spring. You see, when the sun kills the lamb in the 30 days of Aries, it kills the lamb and sheds its blood as a sacrifice every year. And that blood is the impregnation of the blossom season. And then the fruits come from that blood, from the death of the lamb. Aries, the lamb, the sacrificial lamb, must be sacrificed every year for us to be saved. That's why in the first words of the Gospel of John, you see, people don't notice this, but John begins with a fully grown Jesus. He doesn't begin with a baby in the crib or in a manger. Down here in Capricorn, where the son's a little baby. John and Mark, the two Gospels, begin over here in Aries. And there's telltale signs. Last week I dealt with this and pretty much covered it and proved it conclusively. I went through all the chapters of Mark, the 16 chapters, and all on cue, they were talking about all the Aryan constellations, Cassiopeia, Cephas, Andromeda, and all of the decanal constellations that are associated with these two signs here, Pisces and Aries. And then it talks about, the early chapters of Mark talk about light, which is the Pleiades and Venus, the two lights of Taurus. And then it talks about your brothers and twin, etc., etc. And then it goes, here's the transfiguration of Jesus, right on cue, I think in the 8th chapter of Mark, where the sun is transfigured. You see? Now, John, this is the first chapter of John, okay? Verse 30. The next day, seeing Jesus coming towards him, John said, "Look, there is the Lamb of God that takes away the sin of the world." First chapter of John. And then, of course, in the next couple of chapters of John, you can rest assured that he'll be talking about Taurian themes, like the parable of the sower, because that's when you sow in Taurus, you know, so you can get some harvest in Virgo, etc., etc. And it's all on cue. It's in the Gospels. So what I'd like to do now is I'd like to... I did explain, you know, Saturn, where to look for him. Okay, in the week, he controls the day of revelry. That'd be Saturday, all right? And then Sunday, of course, everybody gets good and goes to church and does their family things and repents from Saturday night, don't they? Yeah? Let's be good. Yeah, but Saturn, that's because the sun is, you know, he's warm and he's gracious and beneficent, magnanimous. Whereas Saturn is cold and withdrawing, and rather than mankind being alert and awake and everything, they're sleeping during these hours of Saturn. So he's dealing with introversion and going within. That's where the light of the sun pierces matter. Here it quickens matter, as Manly P. Hall says. Here the sun is quickening matter, but here it pierces through matter. And here we go within. Here we go externalizing, you know, going touching stuff and seeing stuff with our eyes because the sun's out. So you see, it's not bad, but you can see where Saturn is associated with bad. Also during the day, you know, he's got his 12 to 4 rulership. During the year, bang, Saturnalia. And by the way, this is where they used to weep for Tammuz, you know, in Babylon, where they used to, where Ezekiel and Daniel were complaining that the children of Israel were weeping for Tammuz, you know. Why would you weep for Tammuz? Well, Tammuz Day is the 21st of December, and Tammuz is Saturn. And so, yes, the Romans were, exchanging gifts. There was amnesty in Rome. You know, during the Saturnalia, I mean, there was a lot of revelry going on. Believe you me, people were getting blind drunk. Anything went. Anything went. You could do whatever you wanted on the Saturnalia. It was revelry. Big time. You know, gift-giving, merriment, Bacchanalia, Bacchus, of course, being the god of wine. That was the festival of the Bacchanalia. And we still say in Italy, per Bacco. You know, we say, good on you, Bacco, the god of wine, because he's blessed us. And the sun is the god of wine, Bacchus, who gives us wine in September all the time, every year. That's where the grapes get mature and pressed, and that is the season of wine. That is the season of bread, the bread and the wine. Because they are the two symbols, the greatest symbols by which we can honour this cycle. Wine being the blood of the gods, and you drink it and you say it's good. And that's the blood of the sun, the photons, because wine is made by photons. But it's the process, it's the end of the process. You see, you've got all this watering of the plants, and then you cultivate the plants, you weed them, you look after them. Finally, you reap your harvest, and then you bring them into, indoors, and then you press the wine, and then you let it wait for, to cure and to mature, and then you open your tap and you take out a glass and you drink it. That's the end of the road for the sun's work. You've got wine for all the winter now, so it's a great symbol of Christianity, Christ being the sun. And the bread, of course, so you grow your wheat and then you harvest the wheat, you get all the virgins in Virgo season to go out and bring in the wheat, and then you bring them into your mills, and then you crush that wheat, and it's a lot of work to crush that wheat. Then you bring it into your house and to your pantry, and then you make bread with it. You mix a little bit of yeast and stuff and everything, put it in the oven, take it out, and then you eat the fruits of the season. Right on cue, bread and the wine. And that's why when Christians go to have their Passover memorial around Easter time, to do with the lamb, they take the sacraments of the bread and the wine. So look for Saturn, because when you understand the roles of the seven, they are all different. Our solar system, it works in such a manner. It works like this. You see, the heart is the sun is always in the middle kingdom, and there are 3 spheres above and 3 below. So it's in the fourth. It's in the middle. There is always the sun in the middle, and this is Ptolemaic, by the way. Remember the astrologer Claudius Ptolemy, and of course, when Copernicus discovered that the planets orbit around the sun, which they don't, they immediately went and attacked this guy. Because he said, the earth was the centre of everything, and the sun, what's the sun doing? Rubbish! The sun's in the centre. What's it doing there in the middle of the planets? That's ridiculous. Well, it's not ridiculous, because this is in fact the structure of the sevenfold material place in which we live and move and exist. And one day we will go out of the rings of Saturn and to his father, Uranus, who is in the firmament. Okay, Uranus. Right, we've got Saturn, and his father was Uranus. Well, Uranos in Greek means heaven. Saturn, of course, is time. So Saturn castrates his father and takes over the rulership. What that's telling you is that time, when you come into this solar system, you're under him. He's the boss, the Lord of the Rings. He's the Lord of the Rings because it's one ring to rule them all. And he has rings. He's the planet of rings. Okay? And he swallows his children. Anyone who comes into his kingdom must perish in time. So what happens is we go back to Uranus, we go back to the heavens, and out of the control of Saturn. Now this is going to happen. By the way, at the moment there is a beautiful Aries. Uranus is in Aries at the moment, and Saturn is in Libra. Saturn exalts in Libra. He's having a good time, and Uranus loves Aries. Uranus is up here, right now, in the skies. Take note of this because this is very, very revolutionary. It's in all of your heads. Uranus is causing a lot of social changes down below. Take note of these things. Uranus will be here for another 13 years in Aries. And Saturn will be here for a couple more years in Libra. And this is what's happening now around the world. This is the justice that's going on. The heads are rolling right now because Saturn is here in his sign of exaltation. Pluto's in Capricorn. That also has to do with judgment. Pluto being in Capricorn, over here, these three boys, they're changing the whole scenario downstairs. All right, guys, so now this is back to, what I'm doing now is I'm making a bigger version of what I did before, and the Tropic of Cancer is up here, right? So the sine wave, you can see the sine wave continuing on down that way, okay? So what we've done is we've made this much bigger, and there's the Tropic of Capricorn. And so all we need to do now is fill in the bits, okay? And there's the beautiful glyph for the Earth, because the ancients knew what they were doing, did they not? Now, what we've got is, take note of this, fire, earth, air, and water. All right? That's the pattern that the sun takes. Aries, Taurus, Gemini, this is the great gift that they left us. And they understood what all of this goes back to. And I'm going to show you that all of this goes back to how nature unfurls. There's nature unfurling. It's a Taurus. Planets are doing it, our bodies are doing it. We have the energy going up through the head and around in our Merkaba chariots. Okay? We are flaming chariots of fire, light bodies. Great, magnificent solar systems, galaxies unto ourselves. There's the galaxy, check it out. 48 constellations, 360 acupuncture points, 360 degrees of arc. There it is. Aries in the head with Perseus over here, bringing in the light and slaying Medusa right there, one of the deacons of Aries. And it goes around, and the sun goes through all 48 constellations every year. And as that's happening, that's your big brother above causing effects in you. You are being affected by all these motions and wheels. And here we are getting about our daily business and we don't know anything about it. And we don't even care anymore. How often now do we look up at the stars? I don't know whether a lot of people do, look out at night and just go, well, isn't that a beautiful sight? To look at the stars. And to think that those photons have been travelling for billions of years and finally they reach your eyelid and you don't delight in that, the pleasure of knowing that you're just receiving light that's been travelling for years and years and years to find it. Yeah, there's a lot of smog. But what is the structure behind this is the vector equilibrium or the cube octahedron, okay? The octahedron and the cube. Okay? That is this 12-fold structure. This is a perfect model of 12ness. This is where the 12 comes from, okay? From the vector equilibrium that supports this structure, that is what planets and galaxies are doing. 64 in the Flower of Life, 64 in the I Ching, 64 boards in the chessboard, squares, 64 codons in your DNA. 64 in Kabbalah. When you put the Kabbalistic trees together, you get your 64, the number. It's a precious number. The city of Melbourne has a grid. Have you seen the rectangular grid of the city of Melbourne? Open up your Melways and check out Melbourne, the city of Melbourne. Designed by Freemasons, okay? You've got, that'd be Latrobe, Lonsdale. Anyway, look, you've got to check this out yourself. It's 64 grids. 64. It was designed that way. 64 blocks in the city of Melbourne. That's where I play my guitar, right there in the middle. In the middle of the 64. In the Burke Street Mall. But check it out, and it comes from this, 12. In the vector equilibrium. What we've got here too now, I'm going to go and try, I'm trying to be nice and slow because I do go very fast. So I want to just take my time with this and it'll sink in a lot better. You've got cardinal, cardinal, cardinal and cardinal. Okay? Fixed, 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 fixed. And, oh yes, I got pretty blue. Woo-hoo. Mutable, mutable, and mutable. Okay, so this is basically the science that they left us with, and everything here is all on cue with what's going on in your body and with what's going on upstairs. For instance, fire in Aries, that's the brain. Fire is electric. Well, in the morning, when the sun wakes up at 6 a.m. and you wake up at 6 a.m, first thing that happens is this turns on and your eyes turn on, both ruled by Aries and Mars. Right? It rules the top of the head. So you wake up here with fire because electricity needs to be working the electromagnetic computer that you have up here. Then the sun flips polarity from 8 to 10 and it gives you earth fixed. That would be the mouth. Earth rules this part of the body. So you put earth in your mouth, you see? And it's a magnetic polarity. Here, Gemini, that's Gemini and the two lungs. And Gemini needs air, mutable because it's probably changing the air, isn't it? Getting oxygen from the air, mutating it in the lungs and then sending it out as carbon dioxide and what have you. Well, that's air being mutated. It's all on cue. Everything's on cue. Even the cancer, the water of cancer. You know, the chest, it has to do with the chest, and the water, the milk of the mother. It's the motherly sign. So that's the water that she gives, the generation that she gives. Leo is the heart, fire. The heart is the pump that's warming the body, the hot blood, fire. It's on cue. So it's all physics. It's all science. This is the model below, as above. As above is exactly the same. In fact, as I'm going to get a chance to read from these books, you will see that the esoterists said that when you look up, you're looking at the brain cells of God. Those stars, they are the brain cells. And all of those Birkeland filaments and currents, they would be neurites and dendrites and synapses in your brain, in the brain of the God. It's a mind. It's a universal mind. So let's have a look at the rulers. As I said before, you've got the sun here, the seven-rayed God, according to Plutarch, the seven-rayed God. The moon, Mercury, Virgo, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. This is the gospel. God's spell. It's God's spell. It's not an evil spell. It's a spell. It goes forth. The spirit of El, God's spirit of El, is always going forth in the gospel because this is the gospel. Jesus goes around with his 12 disciples. He has John always by his side. He has Jupiter, Peter, his best friend, Jupiter. There are all the characters of the gospel, okay? The gospel. The gospel is dealing with a daily cycle and a yearly cycle and a backward processional cycle which lasts about 24,000 years. Once you work those out, then you will understand the science. Because the idea is to understand the solar system. Because in your understanding the solar system, you acquire solar consciousness. That's Christ consciousness. Otherwise, you're stuck with earth consciousness, which is neither bad or good. It's earth consciousness. But we need to shed that. And when we learn about the solar system and how it works, then we are able to embrace that consciousness. Then we go to the galaxy and we have galactic consciousness. And then the whole universe, we see how that works and understand it. And we have universal consciousness. Then we go back to unity consciousness. Rather than the dualistic consciousness of the lower earthly consciousness. It's down here where we get opinions about good and evil, which doesn't exist up there. Simply doesn't exist. It's our polarity that we have made. It's happening in our world. This is the message. These beautiful stories are in the message, but you won't see them if you're not looking. Have you ever noticed those 3D pictures that contain a three-dimensional picture, but you've got to stare at them, right? Yeah. Have you ever seen those? Sometimes it takes a minute or 2 minutes. Some people never get it. Nope. They never see it. And that's what the Bible is. The Bible is like that. It's got these amazing allegorical stories that most readers are just walking straight past, Oh, Jesus said this and Jesus said that. Never ever understanding what is really happening. And this is the crime of the priestcraft. And those people are trained to not have eyes to see. You see, that's why the scriptures say, for ones who have eyes to see, you will see it. Now, you notice another thing with Saturn is, this is the symbol of Saturn. Did you know that, the hex? If you have a look at some photos on Google, some photos of Saturn, it's a big gas monster, you will notice that good old Saturn, who is not the Messiah, he's a very naughty boy, has a hex. That's a photo of Saturn. All right? See the hex? Now, this is the Star of David, David being Saturn. And you see a triangle pointing upward, which means the spirit going back to where it came from. And this is the matter, the feminine triangle pointing downwards. And that's the descent of our souls into matter. Okay, but the spirit will rise up again. You see, now as we go back into the age of Aquarius, Saturn rules Aquarius. So we've been in Pisces for 2,000 years. Jupiter's going to hand over to his daddy. That's his daddy. Remember, Jupiter defeated him when Saturn was eating all his children, and then his Saturn's wife, I think it was Hera, she took Jupiter and she hid him away, and then she put a rock in a blanket, and then she gave it to Kronos, and Kronos ate it and burped and whatever and said, "Thank you very much," And he thought that Jupiter was gotten rid of. But Jupiter was growing up on Crete, right? This is mythology, but it's talking about the fact that Saturn gave over his kingdom many thousands of years ago. See, if we go back 2,000 years ago, and another 2,000 years ago back into the heart of Egypt, Egypt ruled around here. This is Aries, the age of Aries. Greece and Medo-Persia ruled around here. Egypt was around here, and then we go back even further. We go back to a time when Saturn used to rule. Saturn loses his kingdom to his son Jupiter. And Jupiter is the one that gives it back to Saturn over here. Jupiter takes it away from his father and gives it back to his father. As we go back to Saturn, and believe you me, people know that the age of Aquarius is bringing Saturn back. And everything that Saturn grants, which are great blessings. The philosophers like Pico and Marsilio Ficino in the Renaissance times, they would greet each other with greetings of, you know, blessed be Saturn and we shall await his return, because there won't be any peace until Saturn returns. Okay? That's why you see the Star of David kicking around a lot, because these people, the Zionists, are pretending to be the true Saturnians, ushering in the new golden age, the one world order, with the UN and NATO, etc. These are the imitators. These are the pretenders to the throne. The age of Saturn will return, and it will be the Hermetic ones that will bring it back with peace and unity, not this criminal mob. But you have a look at this. The Bible always talks about things like, have you ever heard the beautiful expression, you shall be planted like a tree near a river? A tree is always happy near a river, isn't it? Because it draws water from under the table, the water table, yeah? And you see prosperous trees near a river. Well, that's what this is depicting. You see, a river works like this. There's mountains. Say, you know, you've got some mountains. And what happens is usually rivers come down off mountains, and they are tributaries to bigger rivers down the line. And here's the ocean. And just before the ocean, there's like a delta where the main, you see, and so there's all these rivers that feed into it, right? So what's happening is the rivers are actually flowing back to the source, you see. But with a tree, if this is the trunk of a tree, and these are the branches and the leaves, these are all the leaves, and there's the roots that go under the ground, you find that one is coming from the roots and ascending to the heavens, whereas the river is descending from the heavens and going into the water. You see, it's this symbolism, and it's beautiful symbolism, but most people don't get it. They think, oh, a tree next to a river, that would be nice. And that's it. That's the extent of there, because they don't see the three-dimensional allegory that's in the Bible. It's in there. And that's what I'm going to try and draw out, okay? Not just the Bible, but all of the mythologies. I'm going to show how Hercules is in here. Hercules. Okay, let's have a look at Hercules. Where would the Pillars of Hercules be? The most glorious place on the wheel. There he is. There is Hercules. And there's the Jewish system of Kabbalah, Boaz and Jachin. The Pillars of Hercules, the two twins, Pollux and Castor, they always dominate the holy mountain of God. And right here, in between Gemini and Taurus, and Sagittarius and Scorpio, that's where the Milky Way intersects the stars. And you can see it here in my graph. You can see here, see the Milky Way faintly going through Scorpio and Sagittarius, and through, there it is there, faintly going through Taurus and Gemini, right? That's where the Milky Way intersects, right here. So this is the milk, and in Cancer is the beehive, the milk and the honey. This is the land flowing with milk and honey. And the Pillars of Hercules are always up here. Samson, when he pulls down the gateposts of Gaza, and then he goes and kills that lion and he eats the honey, and then he gets betrayed by Delilah the virgin, who betrays him to all of these enemies of the sun, the fall. Starting with Saturn, starting with Saturn in his exaltation house, but this is the fall of the sun. This sign is the exaltation of Saturn, but the fall of the sun. The sun here is wounded. Scorpio bites the sun in November. The backbiter betrays the Lord with a kiss. And here is Draco, the constellation of the dragon in Sagittarius. Jupiter is there, Peter, in the Garden of Gethsemane, where Scorpio betrays the Lord for 30 silver pieces. 30 days of the silver moon. This is all betrayal. This is the sun being betrayed as it goes down. But here, the sun is glorious. There is Hercules. Hercules is the sun passing through Gemini, conquering his holy mountain. Gemini is always there. It will always be there at the top. The sons of Zeus, Pollux and Castor, one divine, one human. And that's why you have the two pillars everywhere, in every system, the two pillars. There's the Arch of Titus, and he tells you, look at that, there's the Jewish menorah. That Jewish menorah is right there, because Titus, having destroyed Jerusalem. And there's the Jewish menorah, people. Ephesus, this is the... In Revelation, these are the 7 congregations that are in Asia. Ephesus, Thyatira, Philadelphia. Interesting. Philadelphia. Any Greeks?
Brothers.
Yeah, love of brothers. Would that be the two twins, Pollux and Castor, and the love that Pollux had for Castor, that he decided that he would give up his immortal life so that he could save his brother Castor, and they shared immortality every year. One would have immortality and one would have mortality. That's the love that they had, brotherly love. Philadelphia, right on cue. Here you have Sardis, which means the peak. Pergamos, which means the peak. Sardis, which means the king, the lion. Here you have, anyway, it's on the video. But these are the 7 congregations, okay? There they are there. These are the 7 planets, the 7 Elohim. That's what they are. The sun is the middle one. Saturn is the left one. That's the moon. So you've got Sunday to the middle, Monday over here, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Saturday is always the 7th. So here you have the Arch of Constantine. See, this is Jupiter and Pollux and Castor, because when he climbs up that holy mountain and he goes through the pillars, see, that's why these megalomaniacs like Titus and Constantine made their arches, their pillars, because they want to be like Hercules. Who doesn't want to be? We all do. We all want to be like the star, the sun, the superstar, Michael, Jesus, King Arthur, Jason and his golden fleece, looking for the golden fleece. They're all looking for Aries. All of them. The Jews are looking for the Passover lamb. The Christians want the Lamb of God that takes away the sin of the world. Everyone wants the lamb. The lamb is here. You see? That's the lamb. Because everybody wants to live here. We all want to go to heaven. And you go to heaven, there's no postal address for heaven. It's here, it's inside. You don't go knocking on St. Peter on the gates and, hey, St. Peter, is this, I think I've got the right address. I was told to come to, certain coordinates of the of right ascension and declination, and I've found heaven. It's not going to happen. It's in you. The kingdom of God is in you, and this is the kingdom of God. This wisdom. So, it's all the sun. Look at this. See? They'll have, in Paris, they have the Arc de Triomphe, right? Well, where do they place that? Right in the Champs-Élysées. The Champs-Élysées, is that Élysée? Would that be the Champs-Élysées? Yes. The Elysian Fields, springtime. This is where all the magic happens. This is the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. You see, mind, Aries, the head, electric. That's the nous. And that's the thinking. That's where we do our thinking. Here we speak. And Gemini, we do. Yeah? So we think, we speak, we do. And in fact, Aries is I am, I have, and I think, which is pretty interesting because that also is the process of doing. But the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit is how everything gets done in the whole world. First you think it, then you speak it, then you do it. Now, yeah, this is the thing, and we're waking up to this stuff. We're waking up to the fact that we come from the stars. Have you got any friends who swear that they come from Sirius or the Pleiades, right? Well, let's have a think about it. Sam, what's your nationality?
Our background's from Syria.
Syria. Oh, let's have a look at that word, shall we? They're Syrian. They know where they come from. Right next door, there's a country called Canaan, originally. That's the Canaanites. That's canine. That would be the dog. Sirius is the dog star. So the Syrians, the Canaanites, the Assyrians, etc., they know where they come from. You come from Syria, from Sirius. Most of us do. So it's still there. You can see this in the country, in the country of origin. Look at Italy. They say that the Romans come from Romulus and Remus, and they suckled on a wolf. That'd be the dog, the canine, and Mars. They claim that their descent is from Mars. You see the two twins. That's a dog, isn't it? A wolf. They're telling you the two twins of Gemini, Romulus and Remus, who are suckling Sirius. Sirius is always here. That's where Sirius lives, man. She's in between Gemini and Cancer. The dog is, in fact, Canis Major is a deacon of Gemini. Gemini. Let's have a look at that, shall we? Here we've got, there it is, Canis Major, the great dog. That's where Sirius is. Right there in Gemini, the twins. So the Romans, they know what they're talking about. What they're trying to tell you is that, we have ancestry from the dog. Check it out. We come from a dog star. And what about the tribe in the country of Mali, just near Egypt, the Dogons? Have you heard of the Dogons? Yep. The doggone Dogons. They know more about Sirius than most scientists. In fact, every 50 years they celebrate the orbit of Sirius B around Sirius A. And we can't see Sirius B. All we can see is Sirius. And it's a beautiful, bright, in fact, the brightest star in the sky. And around it is spinning around this, it's a carbon star. It is 300 times harder than diamond. Sirius B, okay? So you've got Sirius, and then you've got Sirius B. Every 49.9 years it does an orbit. And in 89, when Sirius B came in between Sirius and our sun, it caused the rotation of our Earth to slow down and speed up. I discussed this in the presentation last week. And so it has a direct effect. A star that we cannot see, 300 times harder than diamond. And it's spinning at 23 revolutions, 23 times a minute. A teaspoon of it would weigh tons on Earth. Tons, if not hundreds of tons. A teaspoon of the stuff from Sirius B. So, yeah, the Dogons, they every 50 years, they celebrate the orbit of Sirius B, a star that they can't see. How do the doggone Dogons know that? Okay, you can check this out on YouTube. Check it out, the Dogons and Sirius. This is the sort of stuff we need to look at because we're remembering these things. I mean, Sam doesn't have to remember. He knows he's Syrian, and that's that. He's Syrian. Full stop. And the Aborigines in Australia, there's some tribes that call the sun Ra. Well, that's Egyptian. And there's Hopi Indians that talk about Ra. Same name as the Egyptians. How does that happen? Because this was once a universal system, and it was destroyed by the theocratic patriarchal religions who have subverted the whole system and counterfeited it and given us historical figures to take their place, to enslave us. Everything in the Bible is a two-edged sword. It will save you or enslave you. Have a look at the word soul, the sun. Does that sound like soul? Yeah, it does, because it's the soul of the solar system. See, the light of the sun bathes the spirit, the soul, and the flesh. Light partakes of three qualities, three natures, just like water. Liquid, Water can be liquid, it can be solid, it can be gas. 3 states. That's light. That's why light is in the middle. That's why Jesus says, I am the light of the world. You don't go to the Father except through me, the fire. It's the sun, right? The light of the sun. And as the Neoplatonic philosophers said, there are 3 suns in the sky. When you look up to that orb in the sky, it's not just a physical body of hydrogen. It's a psychic person and it's a spiritual person, just like we are. And soul is anima. And this is very pertinent because I'm going to be discussing today how the philosopher lived his life in terms of diet, in terms of actions, in terms of speaking, and all of that. So we're going to really benefit with some practical stuff here because it's got to be useful, and it is useful. And that's what I'm going to be sharing with you about the Prisca Theologia, how useful it is. See, the word soul in Latin is anima. Okay? Soul, animal. Keep that in mind because this is very, very profound, what we're going to be learning. You know, so we see these words and we don't really think of what we're saying sometimes when we go to our church to go and see a minister. You know, we don't sort of put 2 and 2 together. Min is stir, and we see moon and star, like a master. You know, when you get your master's degree, well, that would be a measure of the stars by degrees. Dong, 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 360. So when you get good and you study, you get your master's degree, and they give you a square and a round black hat of Saturn. They've squared you. Now you're a square. Now you're fitting into the system. But you get your master's degree. In Italian, that would be maestro. Bis maestro. Would that be astro? Of course, because if you're going to be good, you're going to be a star. And think about the word Christ. Would you be a carbon crystal by any chance? We've been hexed with earth. We are solid, our bones. We have blood, liquid. We have gas, you know, oxygen and whatnot in our body. And we have fire. So everything's made up of these 4 things. The 4 rivers that flow out of the Garden of Eden. The waters above and the waters below. See, this is all just water, right? All your atoms, they're just like coagulated, just like like when you get a scar, right? You know, you just wait a couple of weeks, and all of a sudden that coagulated blood has caused the skin to be there, and it looks like the scar's gone away, right? So you see the nature of blood. You see how precious blood is, that it actually is making bodies. But what's behind the blood? You see, the blood is flowing with fire and gas and liquid to make solids, coagulate. Coagulation as it goes through the process of temperature, motion, cohesion and solidity. We are carbon crystals. Every organic form is. That is Christ. Because what it's saying is, and the flesh came to dwell with man. And the Christ came to dwell in the flesh. And the Christ was made flesh. That's what it's talking about. It's talking about this was made flesh. We've all got crystals in our body. And what happens is that is what is causing us to remember. And as we drink of the finer consciousness and we expand our minds and leave them open, because without this science, there's no way you're going to go to heaven. There's no way. You can't fluke it. You cannot fluke it. It's not going to happen. And you won't be going to church where they keep you in the lower chakras to get this. It's not going to happen. They do it deliberately. Ra is an interesting word. There's a fellow in Egypt called Ramses. And That would actually be Ra Moses, people. Ra Moses. That's where Moses gets his name from, Ra Moses. And in fact, that's the 19th dynasty of Egypt when this guy turns up. First time Ramses appears. But in the dynasty prior to that, the 18th dynasty, we had Thothmoses. There's many spellings for this, by the way. There's many spellings for Thothmoses, the ancient pharaoh of the 18th dynasties. In fact, Thothmoses III, that's the one that they reckon is the founder of Rosicrucianism and all of the Freemasonic schools come from that 18th dynasty. Most of them. Okay? Yeah, Thothmoses, there's a statue of him done in that, I think it's granite or what's it called? Diorite? Diorite. And it's very hard. And you can see that. Thothmoses III. These guys, they pay a lot of tribute to this guy. But this is where they all come from, those dynasties. All right, I just want to share a few more little points with you. I'm just going through some words here, okay? So you can study the nature of words, because when the written alphabet came into history and civilized us, along came the spells, you see? And with the spells, they sort of bound up all their spells in one book, and they said, oh, this is from God. And if you don't do what it says in there, we're going to kill you. Okay? You get to die. It's a good book. It's great. You know? And we have a special interpretation of it, by the way, too. Yeah? Okay? That's how the Christians treated the indigenous Indians when they went to the Americas. Oh yeah. They had this one. I'd say they would have put this in their left hand, because you need your right hand to have a sword in there to cut heads off. People who don't listen to this book. And that's what they did. They decapitated hundreds of millions of indigenous people. Who knew this? So the 7 days of the week would be Sunday, the moon, Mars, Wednesday's Mercury, Buddha. That's Jupiter, Zeus, god of gods. That's Venus, Friday. And good old Saturn Day. Okay, let's put him in there like that. Okay, I'm going to make a point of him. This is the Japanese language, okay? I'm doing some Japanese kanji here. I didn't actually bring the kanji, I forgot, but doesn't matter. The meaning of the word is what matters. Sun is Nichi. Nichi means heat, fire, light. So you go to Japan and you've got right on cue, you've got Sunday where Nichiyobi is, right on cue, and it's heat, fire and light. Pretty interesting, isn't it? What about the next one? Getsu, that's the moon. Luck and fortune, that has to do with the moon, the goddess of luck. She is the goddess of luck. Getsu, right on cue, Monday. Ka, Mars. Fire, birth. Fire, Mars, birth. In fact, the 25th of March is when Gabriel comes down to Mary and he says, guess what? You're going to have a little son, and he's going to be called Jesus. Because that's where impregnation happens, the blossom, the sperm of the sun. And in Japan, they celebrate Sakura. And in Rome, on the 19th of April, they celebrate the festival of Flora, flowers. Flowers, impregnation, fruit, harvest, preservation, and survival. Then it starts again. Every year, Jesus, bang, has sex with the moon. And how do you know that? Well, because that's where Christians celebrate the Easter. It's full moon. Notice, Easter's always after the full moon, the first Sunday after the full moon, which the Jews celebrate on Nisan the 14th. And that's impregnation, because the moon is always opposite the sun in the Holy Mother of God, the Virgin. So when Easter happens, it's when the sun has crossed over First Sunday after the first full moon, because the full moon must be in the Virgin. The Virgin goes from here to here. You see, her glyph, Mary, it's like pretty much like a Mary. Whereas Scorpio's glyph is turned up with it's an M with an arrow pointed up, because all of this area used to belong to the Virgin. Sui means water, Suiyobi. So that's Kayobi. Suiyobi. This is Thursday's Moku. Wooden, tree. How about this one? Kin. Gold. Venus. Money. Because she's the one that gives wealth, the second house in the zodiac. She's always got the gold and the money. And how about our good friend Saturn? Well, what would that be now? We've already discussed his other name in Greek, Chronos. What does Chronos mean? Time. Well, the Japanese do means time. Time, door, and dirt. You see, guys, when you start looking for these things, you will find them. The science is there. What I'm trying to do, or not trying, I am doing, is syncretizing it all. Okay? In honour of Pico and Giordano Bruno. Okay? That's the book that got him burnt at the cross on the 17th of April, 1600. That book. The Expulsion of the Triumphant Beast. And he is saying, he died because he's saying in there, we've got to go back to Hermes. The world must return to Hermes to be saved, to bring back sanity, because religion ain't working. It doesn't work. It binds people and makes them fools and slaves. And this liberates. The Hermetic revolution was the Renaissance. It was based on pure Hermeticism. The founding of the Republic of the United States of America was pure Hermes. And I'm going to read to you from Thomas Paine. He's the guy who got the revolution going, by the way. Thomas Paine. You've got to read this guy. It's all about Hermes. All of it. Okay, I'm going to read from here. Thomas Jefferson, all those guys, they were Hermetists. And the Republic, which frees, is Hermes.
What do you make of the suggestion that a certain proportion of them were Freemasons, and what association did Freemasonry have with Zionism all the way back then?
Yeah, look, Masons, like everyone else, have been co-opted and invaded and overtaken by the Vatican and all its good little soldiers. Has many foot soldiers. The Jesuits, the Bilderbergers, the Trilateralists, the Council on Foreign Relations, any buffoon like a Henry Kissinger or a Zbigniew Brzezinski, these imbeciles who will sell their mothers for, a pocket full of pennies. Traitors to mankind. But the Vatican runs all of that. It has gone around all around the earth, co-opting movements and changing the nature of them. The Green Movement, for instance, it might start with genuine grassroots principles, and then all of a sudden someone comes knocking on the door and says, hey, we've got $1 million for you, would you like that? Oh yeah, well, there you go, there it is, but just sign here on the dotted line, and just what we're going to do is we're going to have one of our, we're just going to have someone to sit on your board for you, and help you make good decisions about how to spend that money in the future. And that'll be a Vatican agent. It's all the Vatican, it's all Rome. The elites run Rome. It's the biggest corporation in the world, and it hates this Hermetic wisdom. It has been persecuting it for 2,000 years, okay? Since the days of Hypatia and Theodosius in Rome, who said, just burn them all, burn them, kill them. They went around and pillaged and destroyed all of the universities and temples that were bequeathed to us by the Hermetists. In Alexandria, there was the Temple of Serapis, and they went down and they pulled down Serapis and they burned him to the ground, and they destroyed the library in Alexandria. And there was hundreds of years, or in fact it hasn't stopped. Only 500 years ago they destroyed all the Mayan codexes. Only 4 survived, the Popol Vuh. And this is what they do. They go around destroying evidence that this existed. It existed, and it's coming back, and it will destroy all the fictions. This is here to come, to stay forever. We'll never forget this again. It's coming back. This is Hermes, guys, and rejoice that it's coming back. Have a look at Libra, the point of equilibrium, isn't it? Libra, those scales, those beautiful scales. You see, once you understand this science, you understand what's going on. In the body of the human being is something very special that's going on. And that would be that. You see? Aries at the head, and the sine waves goes through the scales of Libra. Look at the glyph for Libra. I mean, it's sitting there where 6 p.m. is, and September the 21st, the beginning of the Red Sea. Right? So in both of those two cycles, it stands for that. What would that be? That's the glyph. Does that look like a sunset to you? Or a sun passing through the equinox, the equator? Yes, it is. And opposite there is where the Japanese have their car brand Nissan. Nissan means March. And you see the symbol for Nissan? It's got the sun going through the equator. These are things to look out for. The sun. The sun dominates everything. It's all about the sun. In fact, that's a painting there, famous painting that an Englishman did down in New Zealand about 150 years ago. And what you can see, that's a tattooed warrior, okay? And you will notice that the lines on the top of the face here, this all has to do with sun worship. This is the sun, just like this mask is. And you see you'll have 13 lines down one side and 14 lines down another side. 13 times 14 equals 182. Any idea what 182 is all about? It's solar science, pure science. Well, it's a half of the year, exactly. Okay? It's a half of 365 days. And what it's representing is 1/2 of everything of the year. Now, but it's a symbolic number. It's not actually accurate, because this half of the year is exactly 187 days long, and this one is 178 days long. Did you know that? Yeah. The sun above the horizon takes 187 days. And below the horizon, it takes 178 days and a quarter. Marcus Manilius, in his wonderful poem, he talks about this when he says, take note that the crab and the twins and the bull all rise upside down. Because he said, these signs, where Sirius is, Sirius, and these signs, he says, they are slowing down the sun. You see? They drag and pull on the sun. That's why they come up, upside down. This is poetry. It's not scientifically accurate. But what's going on is this. You see, this guy's telling you that there's 182 days, and it's from the solstice through the equator to the other solstice. Or this line here would be the equator, the equinoxes, and this line here would be the solstice. And so I'm not sure which way it is, but that's what it's talking. This is also talking about solar science. You'll notice that there's different amount of numbers on this side as opposed to the lines on this side. Okay, they're doing that. It's not a mistake. It's deliberate, because it's trying to encode special formulas for the sun, And you know, like the Korean flag is doing the same thing, really. You know, I think it goes that way. Spirit, fire, and matter, water. It's telling you the same thing. Fire, earth, air, and water. So, and the reason for this now, it's easy to work out when you know that on January the 4th, the Earth is at perihelion with the Sun. It's 4 million miles closer to the Sun than at July the 4th. So where would January the 1st be? Let's have a look now. We've got 21st. January the 4th would be around about here, and July the 4th would be around about here. That's perihelion. Helion is the Sun. So it's basically, it's perigee. Perigee. So let's, in our elliptical orbit, if there's the Sun, our Earth will be like, in its orbit, it will be like here, closer to the Sun, 4 million miles, by the way, and it has nothing to do with summer or winter. That the Earth being closer to the Sun down here in July the 4th, January the 4th, perihelion, that has got nothing to do with the temperature. Nothing at all. That's the tilt. Okay? So this is perihelion, and this is aphelion. Aphelion is here. July the 4th. You know, when you get all your Independence Days, all countries around the world celebrate, whether it's Canada, you know, Venezuela, whatever, many countries around the world have their independence over here because the Sun is conjuncting Sirius. Sirius is the one who gives independence and freedom. She is the Statue of Liberty. It's Sirius, the mother of the system. She dominates the whole star system that we're in. Okay, so that's why there's drag. Obviously there's drag because if we're in a binary with Sirius, this is how it would work. There's Sirius and there's our Sun, and we have an elliptic orbit, right, that we go around. Sirius also does this, like that. So there's our Sun, and our Earth is going around anti-clockwise like that in its orbit. And so this would be, here would be perihelion. And here, so here the Sun would be in Capricorn, and here the Sun would be in Cancer. So you see what's happening is because these two stars are flying towards each other, and by the way, Sirius is hurtling towards us at 12 miles a second. She's flying towards us, man. And with that Sirius B going around it. And every time Sirius B goes around, there's havoc on the Earth. Havoc. And she's hurtling towards us. So her speed coming, she's blue shifted now because for 12,000 years, Sirius has been observed to be red, right? When she turned the corner and they're hurtling towards each other, what's happening now is the Sun is being pulled up, and of course it leaves all this drag, which is this drag here. Right? Because when the Sun is in Sirius, when the Sun is heading towards Sirius, and it's in that sign, it's being pulled up. That's the drag. But that is also explained by the vortex solar system. Okay. Now in 5 minutes we're going to have a break, so get a coffee and walk around a bit. But I've got some juicy stuff in the next 2 hours. Some really good stuff. I'm going to spend a lot of time on the diet of the philosophers, okay, and stuff like that. And I want to try and go through a whole bunch of quotes and stuff from various books and sources that establish this as a science. What do you think of that?